But what these last 2 weeks have done is expose an offense that has not been good for years, okay, and expose the play calling, which has not been good since Brian's been here as the offensive coordinator. There have been some defenders of Brian this week through social media and other outlets that have basically said, well, look, this is Kirk's offense. He's still running it. Brian, you can't blame Brian for what's happening here because the numbers were bad before Brian. My simple response to that is, why is Brian the OC if he has no responsibility with what's happening here? I mean, he's been the coordinator here for 5 years? Why is he the offensive coordinator? Why? Besides the fact that he's Kirk's son, and I know that's the main reason why he was hired, right? I mean, as far as his LinkedIn resume, if you will, there were no qualifications to be an offensive coordinator in the Big Ten other than his last name. That's a fact. Now, anybody wants to argue that, you can argue that, but that's a fact. But what was the point of hiring Brian if it wasn't to make the defense better? And the simple question when you begin any new job or career is, are you performing at the level that is required? Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Iowa has been dead last in the offensive categories throughout the entire year. And if you look back at the rest of his tenure, they've been in the lower quarter of the Big Ten basically every year. He's not performing as the offensive coordinator the way he needs to perform. Now, if Kirk is not giving Brian the reins to the offense, which is another theory people have that, well, Brian's got to be given the reins, he wants to do more. What are we basing that off of? We're basing that off of hope and speculation. He's the offensive coordinator. Right now, the offense blows. Okay? The offense is terrible. Okay? Not blaming the players. I'm blaming the coaching staff. It ultimately does fall back on Kirk Ferentz. He is the head coach, but right now, the offense is struggling, so Brian's got to be the guy that's being examined, and he should be okay with that. That's the type of responsibility you take on when you accept the offensive coordinator position at a Big Ten school. Now, granted, I acknowledge the fact that the offenses were not typically great under Ken O'Keefe. They were not very good under Greg Davis. The difference is I think they're worse now. And I will be going back this week. I've not had a chance to do it yet, but I will be going back this week and looking at Iowa's total offense as far as rankings. I don't want to look at just numbers because obviously college football has changed over the course of 23 years in points and how teams play. So I'm going to look at rankings because if you're Iowa, you've got to, if you want a chance at competing for championships every year, which Iowa does not do, you've got to be able to keep with the times, which we know Iowa doesn't do offensively. And even if you don't keep with the style of play that is typically accepted in college football today, you've got to be able to find a way to put points on the board, get yards up. And Iowa was doing that earlier this year by means of the defense, but that is not good enough. Clearly, you've got to be able to produce points on the offensive side of things. But I guess what I'm saying is this was not a great Wisconsin offense, and Iowa made the Wisconsin offense look pretty darn good. And again, you can say, well, the defense should have done more to force turnovers. When you are an offense that can't stay on the field, you are doing your defense such a disservice. This defense was on the field all day long. Iowa's offense and special teams turned it over 3 times in its own red zone, 2 of which were offensive turnovers, 1 of which was Max Cooper muffing a punt. I feel sorry for Max. Hasn't played basically all year, comes in for Charlie Jones and muffs a punt. I feel bad for the kid. But it's still a turnover. It can't happen. And so that's disappointing. But, again, this offense has not improved. I mean, you look back to week 1 against Indiana. It was poor. We had a big run from Tyler Goodson that kind of overshadowed things early in that game. And then the defense went to work with a couple pick sixes from Riley Moss. They only scored 34 points. So take away the run, take away the 2 pick sixes, the offense put together 13 points. And again, consistently throughout this season, including that first game, the defense has put the offense in these positions to score. Iowa State, same thing. We have the scoop and score from Jack Campbell. You had a nice pick from Hankins in a return. You had another pick from Hankins. You had a pick from I think there was another pick in that game, wasn't there? You got the 2 Hankins picks. I'm missing somebody. Somebody had a pick in that game, I believe. I could be wrong on that. The point is the defense is they've consistently gotten interceptions, fumble recoveries, etc., and forced them at huge times. I mean, think about the Colorado State game. Remember that fumble by, I believe it was Centeo, inside their own red zone? And I don't even remember, did Iowa's offense get a touchdown on that play or that following drive? I don't remember. But, man, Iowa's defense was bailing the offense out so much early on, and I wonder if this defense has sort of ran out of gas. I mean, it's still playing incredibly hard. It's amazing. From start to finish during the game on Saturday, this defense just does not let up. And you're going up against a tough offensive line. You're going up against an Allen kid who's 17 years old, looks like a poor man's Derrick Henry. Malusi was running the ball well, but Iowa's defense just kept giving Iowa a chance to get back in the game, and Iowa just refused to take it. You may have heard during my postgame with Don Patterson over at Iowa at the Voice of College Football, my issues with play calling. You come out of the first play of the game, you come out with an empty set against Wisconsin on 1st and 10. I mean, there's just no explanation for that, and Kirk knows better than that. I mean, are we fooling ourselves here? To come out empty with nobody in the backfield, with a quarterback who can't run on 1st and 10 to start the game? I mean, you'd have to think Jim Leonard for Wisconsin, their DC, was just salivating when he saw that. I was not as critical about the 4th and 1 decision to run the fullback because, honestly, what other plays have worked in short yardage situations? Though, I mean, I know Iowa's failed on 2 quarterback sneaks against Purdue. They failed now on 2 fullback dives against Wisconsin back-to-back. And I get it. They're not very unique calls. They're not creative calls, but I'm not an OC. I just don't know what other plays you have confidence in right now in any situation, let alone short yardage situation. But certainly what Don Patterson brought out is true. You have a 9-man front you're going up against there. Maybe you do a fake toss out to your fake handoff to your fullback, toss out to Tyler Goodson or Gavin Williams, and there's other things you can do. So I understand fans' frustration with that play and that call. Then you have the 4th down play before Petrus left the game for good on Saturday in the 4th quarter. It's like 4th and long. He throws the ball 20 feet out of bounds. I mean, what's the reasoning for that? That's on Spencer, but it's also on the coaching staff for not putting him in a better position to succeed. I mean, this is, everybody wants to blame the quarterback. I've talked about this in the past many a times. But, obviously QB development's not great here. I'm trying to figure out the reasoning behind a quarterback ever throwing the ball out of bounds on 4th down. Why not just throw the ball down the field and hope you get picked and it'd be the equivalent of a punt? That didn't make any sense. But again, Spencer's under duress every play. The offensive line can't block a soul right now. They've got 6 or 7 guys rotating in. You got Jack Plum, who's an upperclassman who's struggling at right tackle. Nick DeYoung, who's a third-year guy struggling at right tackle. You've got Kyler Schott and Cody Ince, who've battled injuries, but they're both healthy now, struggling. I mean, not playing as bad as the tackles are, but those guys are struggling. I give Tyler Linderbaum a ton of credit, man. That kid just plays his tail off. He will be a first-round draft pick next year. But the offense is a problem, and I think fans, we all ignored it earlier in the year because of the record, because this defense continued to put the offense in positions to succeed, and we assumed, well, at some point the offense will catch up. I don't know why we assumed that. The offense hasn't caught up one time under Brian Ferentz. You have little tiny stretches, like against Ohio State in 2017, like against USC in the Holiday Bowl in 2019, where the offense looks good, but it is not. It is never. They can never sustain any level of offensive aptitude. So, I'm not going to talk about position changes, staff changes right now because I just don't personally believe, and I know other coaching staffs will do this. Other fan bases want it. Some fans here in the Iowa fan base I know want Brian Ferentz canned. First of all, that's not going to happen. That's the first thing. Second thing is I don't think it should happen right now. I think if you're going to make decisions like that, they need to come after the season. And by that, I mean after bowl prep. I just don't believe in making a change right now unless there's something egregious, which you could argue the offense is egregiously bad. But I just don't think that's the right decision. And again, Kirk's not going to do that. I don't think Kirk's not going to fire his son regardless. I will be shocked if Brian Ferentz is not the offensive coordinator until Kirk retires. I'll be shocked. So there is that. Now, as far as what Iowa can do, what can Iowa do to mend its issues it's having? Again, we're talking play calling, we're talking offensive line production, we're talking quarterback play. Certainly people have criticized Spencer. Again, I've talked about some of my issues with the coaching staff over the years, not getting quarterbacks in a better position to succeed. Simple things like not teaching your quarterback how to slide properly, how to step up in the pocket. Certainly, you can't always teach mobility. So there's one area I would start. To me, if I'm Kirk, I would seriously look at least playing Alex Padilla for a series or two. It's got nothing to do with benching Spencer. And Spencer, you need to have that conversation with Spencer and say, look, this isn't your fault. We're struggling up front right now, and that's not your fault. But we believe Alex can bring something to help the situation, to remedy the situation. Maybe not even to remedy, but just to mend fences a bit. I mean, you're talking about an offense that's not going to be great, but can you be decent enough to where you can beat Northwestern, Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska? Man, you should be able to figure out a way to get there. With as good as this defense is, you should be able to figure out a way to get there. And if you can get there, you've got a chance at winning the West. We've talked about that. They've still got an opportunity to win this division and win the conference. You win out. Wisconsin loses another game. Iowa's going to be the West representative. Now, I know Purdue's got the tiebreaker, but they will lose again. Purdue's going to lose again. If Wisconsin were to lose again, which I'm not sure is going to happen, but say they lose to Minnesota the last week and Iowa wins out, Iowa will be the representative. So the season's not lost yet. But if I'm Kirk Ferentz, and I know he said during his press conference Tuesday that he hasn't even really thought about inserting Alex Padilla, I hope that's just coach speak, because you've got to at least put that on the table. Like, look, the offensive line isn't protecting Spencer. Alex, he showed during that last drive or second to last drive, whatever it was against Wisconsin, that he does have the ability to move his feet, and that might be enough to get him some time. I would consider that right now. I'm not benching Spencer. Okay, I want to make that clear. But I would consider at least getting Alex in there if he's the second string quarterback, which clearly he is. It's not Deuce Hogan, so we're not inserting Deuce. That narrative can die. Okay, Deuce is not playing. I mean, there's no reason to play Deuce right now when Alex is the second string guy and he's mobile. But that's got to be done, in my opinion. The offensive line, obviously, you can. Iowa really hasn't taken advantage of tight ends as much as I'd like in the blocking game. I know Lachey's been banged up a bit. They get Sam Laporta involved with the pass game a lot, but you're going to have to start chipping more. You're going to have to figure out a way to get, maybe a Gavin Williams, now that Ivory Kelly Martin, we heard, is out for this coming game. Maybe he plays more and can develop. He's a bigger body, can be a better pass blocker and help out Spencer, give him some time and help out that offensive line. Maybe that's a solution. Certainly Potabom being in there more. Like if you'd come out the first play of the game against Wisconsin with Potabom in the shotgun, I'd have been fine with that, because at least Potabom gives you the appearance that, hey, maybe we will run, because he's shown to be a capable runner, but he's also a good blocker, pass blocker, run blocker. So I would have been okay with that. There are things you can do. Again, I'm no coach, I'm no offensive coordinator, but to me, these are things that I would hope Kirk Ferentz is talking about this week. And Kirk also made the comment yesterday that he's not been spending any more time with the offensive line than he normally would. I hope that's not true. George Barnett's a first-year guy. I don't think that means if you're Kirk and you spend more time than normal with the offensive line unit, I don't think that means you're micromanaging George. You're simply offering Coach Barnett some help, because he's got his hands full right now. He's working with these guys every day, and we're not seeing a ton of improvement. That's just a fact. So I'd hope that Kirk is working with those guys more than normal. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that was just coach speak, that he is working with that offensive line. But again, these are games coming up that Iowa can win without a great offense, but they've got to be able to protect Spencer to some degree. We haven't talked about Tyrone Tracy's brother going on social media and attacking the coaches. That's another distraction. That doesn't help the situation. Tyrone Tracy has dropped a lot of balls this year, so his struggles are on him. Okay, and Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, those guys have earned those reps. Clearly, they've made more out of their targets than Tyrone has, as has Sam Laporta. So that is a factor as well. So Iowa Northwestern this coming Saturday. If you want to hear my picks for the game, certainly tune in to From the Hawkeye of the Storm on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tune in on Friday night where I make my weekly picks. It'll be my week 10. We're already week 10. Week 10 picks for college football, not only Iowa, Northwestern, but of course games across the college football landscape. Not going to preview it any more than that, because look, this is not a good Northwestern team. I know it's Patty Fitz. I know the guy knows how to beat Iowa. But this is a game Iowa should win by 30. They should. And I'm not going to be happy unless they win by 30. If they win by 5 or win by 10 or 15, they got to win by 30. This is not a good Northwestern team. This is a team that's getting blown out consistently by good to upper echelon teams. Iowa's got to take care of business on the road and get back on track with a win.